folks. Welcome back to another episode of the Off-Air Voiceover podcast. My name, of course, is Michael.
And I'm Jen.
And today we have someone very special joining us, Mr. Donald Pirie, casting director
Whoop,
of voice.
whoop.
Another Swiss Army knife of experience and things that you can do in the voiceover industry. Voiceover, casting director, it goes on. And we're incredibly excited to have you on board today because there's so much information that I know a lot of listeners are we get asked a lot of questions when it comes to things like casting in games stuff, and obviously with your experience, I'm really looking forward to sort of having a conversation, unpacking some information, probably learn a few things myself as well. So Donald, thank you so much for taking the time today to come and chat to us.
Listen, thank you so much for having me. I heard on your last episode about being a Swiss Army knife, and I was like, I'm stealing that. That's it. That's great. Nice.
I feel like we need to be careful with that phrase.
Yeah, exactly.
I was going to say, don't throw it around, but...
No, but listen, thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, for those that might not know who you are and what you're about, do you want to do a bit of an introduction just to bring them up to speed?
Of course. So I'm Donald. I'm 47. So I'm Donald Pirie. I am a voiceover artist. An actor was my sort of first thing that I've been doing for years and years and years, and maybe in the last 6-7 years I've moved kind of full steam into casting and voice directing, and I've voice directed and cast hours of dubbing and animated films, games, anything really, so it's always busy, which is brilliant.
Yeah, because I'm just on your website, you've got Lords of the Fallen you worked on as the casting and voice director.
Yeah.
So with things like this, if you're casting and voice directing, so let's just dive straight into that then, since that's what I was just looking at Lords of the Fallen then. When you're casting people,
mm-hmm.
do you think about the relationship you think you have with them, what they'd be like to direct as well? Is that form as part of your casting process?
I'm going to be honest, right? So I worked with the guys at Big Mouth as a voice actor when they used to have a tiny little studio in this place called the Hidden Lanes in Glasgow, and it was the size of our booths. That was it, and you'd
intimate.
You'd squeeze in, and it was all there. And then they got themselves kind of Netflix approved, and with that they had to have a voice directing and casting, and they were just like, yeah, Donald, we get on well with you. Fancy doing that? I said, yeah, all right. I didn't know what I was doing, and we just sort of threw ourselves in. So for us, me being the casting director and voice director is totally normal. But I don't really think other people seem to do that. But I think it's really important because then I know exactly who I'm getting coming in, and a lot of the times I'm picking who's coming in, to do sessions with us, or I'm putting lists together and things like that of through listing to all the auditions. And I love them both, because I think I really feel that they go hand in hand, and having an acting background, I think, really helps as well,
Yeah, I think because I would love one day to explore more of the direction side of things. I think it's something that just massively appeals to me. My partner Steph, she's a voiceover as well, and often if I'm in here or she's in here, we'll often listen to each other work and we'll direct each other or coach each other, and I love it. So that's. Do you do more of that these days now than as opposed to your own actual voiceover work, or is
I mean,
a balance of the two?
I'm still freelance really in everything that I do. Yeah. So I've seen that to you earlier. Today was a day of 4 hours of directing a session this morning. Then I was recording some, I was going to say terrible radio ads. That's not fair. I love my clients. They were brilliant radio ads. One was for repairing your garage doors, in a small part of Scotland. Exactly. Yeah. So a bit of radio ads and then doing a bit of coaching as well. And I love the variety of that. But I would say that my main job at the moment definitely is the sort of voice directing side of things and the voice acting, just because we're working on a few huge AAA games that have taken, like, one's nearly at a year, that it's been pretty solid. I mean, these are just things that are just like bonkers, games are bonkers, they take that long, So that's probably is, and I think I enjoy that voice directing the most out of any job that I do.
Okay.
I can imagine that.
I love working with actors, and I really do. I love, acting wise, like what I used to do theatre and all that kind of thing. I kind of got a little bored with it all, and even filming. I don't know if you guys have done much filming. Gosh, filming's boring. You know, it's a long day unless you're playing the lead in some big series. You know, and you're maybe. But my parts tended to be something. You know, come in and there's a phone call for you, sir. Do you know? And that was about it. So
and you had 8 hours up to that point.
Exactly.
You just
exactly.
wait there for another 7 hours.
Exactly.
And do it again. Like.
Whereas at the moment, I get to work with like the best actors in Britain and America and all over the place, and it's brilliant fun.
And you get to get the best out of them. I think that's the thing is like you're adapting all the time, aren't you, to the actor you're working with? I mean, presumably, I'm assuming you're very good. Otherwise, you wouldn't keep getting hired. But it's such a gift, I think.
I was saying to a guy today, it's quite like being a football manager, I think, in that every actor is totally unique. I mean, because actors, you get the weird and the wonderful, and they put little quips and little different things, and you learn very quickly, right, okay, Michael needs just a bit of arm around the shoulder, and that Jen's going to need to be bigged up a little bit there, and and this. So everyone needs that different little thing. And
you got that spot on as well. That's exactly what Michael and I do need.
I could tell. Michael just looks like he needs a big cuddle. That's it. But I think that's the thing. You have to learn pretty quickly how to read people and what's going to get the best out of them, because they're all different. Everyone's different, and it's exciting.
I guess
sorry, there we go. First one.
No, sorry. I was going to say, I guess as well, if you've been acting for a long time, that must inform a lot of your direction style. And you say obviously you're adapting a lot to you have some directors who are like, this is the way I do it, and you need to conform to me. Yeah. And obviously, it sounds like you're not like that. You know, you're helping.
I don't think you can be like that, but I also think it's massively collaborative. Do you know? I think between me, the engineer. To me, the engineer is completely vital. Do you know, I
100%.
I need an engineer who's going to give input as well. Yeah. Do you know, I think there's nothing worse than, what did you think? No idea. No, man, come on. Do you know, it needs to be collaborative between you, the actor, possibly the writer or the games director, whoever's on. Yeah. It's a team. You know, it's definitely a team.
That's where the magic happens.
Yeah.
You've phrased it a way there that I've not actually come across before, but I totally agree that, when you say like the football manager thing, because in a lot of instances, we hear about some people, there's obviously a professionalism that goes without saying, but there's like almost like fear the casting director, do as they say, follow the directions, but when you say it that way, actually, no, like, you understand the person, so you get the best out of them if you understand them better, make them feel relaxed, make them feel calm. Create an environment where they know they're there to perform and you want to get the best out of them, and to do that, I don't know, maybe break down that barrier of like, well, I'm the casting director, crack my whip, do as I say, etc. I don't know, I feel like I've been in situations where it's been a bit like that, and it does stifle the creativity a little bit. You don't feel like you've got room to breathe.
You can't be scared to make a mistake.
Yeah, exactly.
And you do. You often are in. You guys will have had it. You know, you're in a position where you feel like, oh my god, I can't make a mistake. You know, and that is usually on ads, things like that.
Yeah, and there's normally like 17 people in the room. You're like, oh my god.
Totally. I mean, games are fun, and animations. I mean, fun. Well, you're playing a small squirrel or something. Do you know? It's you got to have fun. You got to have a laugh. You know, I mean, it's work.
You do.
You know. Yeah.
But I think as well, a lot of us, well, for anybody, it takes a lot to get in that room. You know, and often people, they might be trying for years, as me, to get in that room. And that small squirrel might have 3 lines, but fuck me, you want to nail it. You want to be like the best fucking squirrel that's ever lived. And then be like, yes, they want me back.
Yeah.
You know, so you add a lot of pressure onto yourselves, don't you? Never mind the actual other people in the room.
Yeah. Oh, no, listen, of course, you do. And it's hard. And it's a hard job. And I think, I kind of feel it's probably getting more and more tricky for people, you know, because I can see it from both sides. So
of course.
I've auditioned loads.
Yeah.
I rarely got jobs in animation in games. Like, rarely. Anytime I did, I always think that was a fluke, because. But I do think that as well. I think it's really difficult, you know, and it's a certain type of voice. There's a certain something, you know. You can't say what it is ever, and then people say, "But what is it?" You know,
and that's what we're asking you today. So what
I know. So it is tricky. It is tricky. There is a reason that certain people just seem to work all the time. You know, those certain people, once you then work with them, you're going, I see why you work all the time.
Yeah.
You know, because you're exceptional. Yeah. Because you're no fuss. Because you know, anything I ask, you can go, yeah, I'll do that. You know, it is hard as well, and it is, unless you're, there's that whole thing, unless you're with one of these big massive agents, it's really difficult to even get heard. Do you know?
Well, that's what I was going to. Well, two things. What I was going to say was, we've talked a lot about the importance of being easy to work with, and we've had stories where people have shared stories about working with people who had like quite a diva attitude, and they've and it's a shame.
Emily Jardine's attitude was not attitude. Sorry, in her episode, she's got a great attitude.
She was saying about someone had a bad attitude and stuff, and I think for some people who do that, they're only really stifling their own career because they could be really talented, but this. I don't know whether it's an arrogance or whatever it may be, but it makes it difficult for people to work with them. But like you say, it's people who will continue to get booked. Talent will obviously be a part of that, but it's also because they know that when they get booked, the person booking goes, the job will be done, it'll be done flawlessly, easily, and it won't cause me any headaches.
And that's massively true.
Yeah.
You know, when you bring on, I think we always make sure, and I think it's really important to have as many like open auditions as you can. So for any big roles, we don't work off, I'm looking for a 40-year-old RP male. Oh, here's your 10. This is these guys. And those are the 10 guys, which I think some places might do.
Okay.
We'd never do that. I would always open it out. We'd always send out a casting because I think that's only fair. Do you know? And I think that means that more people can get a shot, to do that way. But the flip side of that is, that's when you may employ someone who's never done stuff before, or you may employ a diva, or so you don't know. But also, everyone needs a shot, and everyone's got, it can't be a closed shop.
It's great to hear you say that, and there's always such a balance in it because you want people to be able to make a career of it and get enough work that they're able to pay the bills. But at the same time, as you say, people want a foot in the door, so it is a very difficult balance that you are treading. Yeah. Can you talk us through that process then? So, in terms of your casting, really break it down.
So, just to put that into context, because what I was going to say was, for the people listening who will be wanting to either get their foot in the door to try and get cast in a game, or they're already booking work, they want to try and get more. So, with that focus in mind, talking to those sorts of people, like, what do they need to do?
Okay, so from start to finish of a casting, say the game we've just been doing for months. The lead guy, how did he get cast? How do you get cast in a huge game like that? So initially, obviously Big Mouth had to pitch for the job, and we'd fight against all these big London studios. So we've got we're like the scrappers, really, because we are like the really small fry in a big pond, against these huge multinational companies that they have in London, and we are basically two guys, Aaron and me. That's us, So we pitch for these jobs, we got this job, and then what happens is I'll have a meeting with the game's director and the writers normally, and what I want from that is as much information as possible.
Yeah.
Show me pictures, tell me about your character. If you could, a question I usually always ask them is, if you cast anyone in the world, who would it be? Yeah. Just because it just gives you a little idea. Sometimes they come up with crazy stuff, and you're just like, all right, very good.
This is going to be a long
you do know that accent is completely wrong, because a lot of the time, especially European clients, they don't really hear accent. It's quite funny. So you get that, get as much information as you can. Then what we would do is we send out a casting. And normally we've got a bank of agencies that we would send it out to, and with that, we always send it to all the Scottish agents as well, because I kind of think we're based in Scotland. That opens it up again, nice. As well as I don't know how many agents we send out to, but we get loads back, back. I can get up to 200 voices per character back sometimes more. So you get all these voices come in, usually right bang on the time, and you can ask me again later about what annoys me and stuff as well, about what people send in, but we can get to that. But anyway, so I get all these voices in, and then what I do is that, I can section off a few days where it's just me sitting in my house with my earphones on, going through everything, because you have to listen to it all, and you have to listen to the full thing, because sometimes people do a first take, and then they might do a second take completely differently, but you go, oh.
But not everybody does that.
Not everyone does it. People do loads of different things.
Mm-hmm.
that's maybe more under the what you should and shouldn't do. But even when people do stuff wrong, I've had people that have got parts that have done...
I'm sorry. I mean that not everyone takes the time to listen to all the applications, all of the takes, but you do.
Listen, you have to. I feel that you have to.
Okay.
But they're usually only about 2 minutes long, so...
Yeah.
I mean, so
200 of those, that's a lot of minutes.
It's a lot of minutes. But I do feel, because I know the client listens to them all.
Okay,
and they do,
right.
and they really do, because they'll say stuff like, I really love what they did in 47 seconds. And you're like, what? And just going through, and then you go, oh, right. Yeah, we want that. We want that, but for the whole thing. Like, all right, okay. So they do, so I kind of feel that I should do.
Okay, yeah.
So listen to all that, and I usually then make an initial cull. That's pretty harsh. That's harsh. But, you maybe got yourself down to 30. Yeah, so I've got 30, and then with those 30, it's back listening, and kind of comparing, and normally then for big games, AAA games, I'll then send between 8 to 12 as a choice. These are my 8 to 12 voices that I pick to the client, and then that means that's what they listen to. So they go through, so they've got a choice of 8 to 12, and with the part for this big game, they got that, they picked 2, then they got the 2 of them came up to Glasgow and the auditions in person as well, because you're going to spend nearly a year with these people.
Yeah.
So for me and for them, they want to get it right because it's vital for their IP, and I want to make sure that, can I work with this person for 300 hours or however it is, 44,000 takes and all that kind of stuff. I want to make sure that I can work with them, and then the person gets picked. That's a sort of general way we cast. Not in person is rare, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
Usually they just pick straight off the lists. That's normally what would happen. So so that's our process, I would say.
So when it comes to sending out the casting, is there a specific way you do that? Is it via certain agencies, or do you ever sort of go on the book and go on socials and see who's posted work and whatnot? So
we do, and we'll often add to our, the people we send stuff to. We've got a batch of people, bank of agents that we'll send to, and that's always, we just add to that, really. It's rather than taking it off and trying to make us only send to the top 3 agents or whatever, because you could do that. I could probably just send out to 3 agencies and get reasonable people back, but again, you would be surprised, because then what happens when we look at my cast list, they're from loads of different agencies, and that's how it should be.
Yeah, that's nice. It's good.
That's how it should be. And as I say, sometimes Scottish actors and who wouldn't get a chance because they're not with one of the big London agencies, and so we as many as we can, and we like to hear about other agents. If people write to us, agents or whatever, and say, can I be included? Yeah, great, let's do it.
And when you do the casting, so working with the game developers, etc. So there has to be an agreement. You'll pick voices you think are right for it. Do they have to sign off on it, or do they give you trust just to get all the voices?
So they trust me to give them a good short list.
Right, okay.
And sometimes, but really it doesn't happen very often. Sometimes they'll go, "There's nothing there. There's nothing that's tickling our fancy there. I need." It just maybe they gave me the wrong steer in the chat.
Yeah. And
they'll go, "But I quite like that one." And you go, "All right, I can either go back and do it, or we can say any you quite liked," and I'll go back to the actors and say, "Could you re-record? But I need it to be more angry, or you need to be more intense, or more, something like that." Because it doesn't happen normally. If you've had a solid enough meeting with the client, they trust you, then it's usually fine.
And I guess as well, you're piecing, if that's just one character, then it's making sure the voices all then meld together across the game.
100%. 100%. Yeah. I mean, so the recent one, we're using 50 odd actors, 220 roles, that kind of thing. So you need a broad spectrum,
Yeah.
to be able to do that. So yeah.
How much different is it? Because I might sound like a daft question, but only because I've never worked on these things. How much bigger is a production from a AAA game to like maybe an indie game?
I think it's to do with budget.
Right. Okay.
But I think a AAA game is a huge variation. Like you can get a AAA game that's AAA, but it still seems quite small compared to some of the behemoths, that are just huge. I mean, listen, Grand Theft Auto is made in Scotland, and they don't use us. They use it all in America.
saw that the other day, and people didn't realise that the headquarters for the game is they're in Scotland.
Well, they started in Dundee, but it's Rockstar was at. There's a wee college in Dundee called Abertay, yeah, and from that college, there is hundreds of games developers. It's like the top course in the world in Dundee,
really,
and that's Rockstar. I'm pretty sure Minecraft was started there. It's crazy, crazy just from this little college.
Do you feel a little bit annoyed that you guys don't do the casting and or direction for that?
I just don't understand why they do. I think they are making a huge mistake, and that's the real reason that the game's delayed by a year. You know, it wouldn't have been delayed on my watch, Jen. You know, that's it.
It's actually. I think I saw something recently said that the overall cost of development for that game is going to hit about $2 billion apparently.
What?
It's insane. But then they'll make it back. Yeah. And they know they'll make it back.
Jesus,
I mean, there's still Grand Theft Auto 5 came out 13 years ago, and they're still milking it now.
Yeah.
You know, with all these updates and
mobile game versions and all this.
It's so popular, isn't it? Though.
Yeah, it's crazy.
But to be fair, I think things like games like Grand Theft Auto or The Last of Us and stuff. I do love games. I don't have I used to have a PS5 when I moved here. I didn't bring it with me. But I do love rich, immersive storytelling games, and the likes of The Last of Us. And one of the reasons why they're so good is the acting. I mean, it is so important because it draws you into the story, and it's just excellent. And I think it's to be able to work on a game of that kind of magnitude, or even not, just any other game, to be able to bring that performance and play something that people enjoy because you're providing a convincing character arc and a story, etc. It's very, very rewarding. I
love how some of the actors kind of become little minor celebs, and and it must be so exciting. And
some people really are, aren't they?
Yeah, and people love you, and they've done fan art of you, and you just think that's just because of this game that they've bought into. It's such a huge business game, so you've got to respect it, I think, as well. It's from my point of view, from a voice director, it's got to be good. Everything's got to be good.
Yeah, it has. And I think one of the other joys about it is the idea of working with like a team like yourself. And being able to spend that time and working as a team is just such a joy, isn't it? As a creative, you don't really want to work by yourself very often. You want to work with other people and bounce off them and be like, and get the engineering, get everyone's input to that if it's appropriate, obviously. But it's just that's makes your heart sing.
I mean, I think our thing, the way we do it, that we suppose we are a wee bit different, but again, just because we don't know any different, it is just really the client is just dealing with three of us for the whole thing. That's it. That's all they're going to deal with. You know that every session just about will be me, and every session we've got the same engineer in London, we've got the same engineer in Glasgow in the two studios. That's the way it's going to be. And I think that's quite nice for the actors coming in. They know what they're going to get. It's not going to be a different voice director for every session, even on the same game. Yeah, exactly. So they know that's the way it's going to be. But yeah. So
in terms of thinking of the individuals who are looking to try and get cast, I know you mentioned about your process and send out the castings. There's an individual, they're doing, fake scenarios, recording it, creating characters, just so they can show their range and stuff. They'll record a demo. Do you like people contacting you directly to give you demos that you can?
Listen, I also think that's what you should do, because otherwise, what else do you do? Just going to sit around and just go. Is it? I don't mind at all when people contact me. Because I think, that's fun. You've even managed to find out who I am. Like why? That's good on you. And
that's so sweet.
You've got away. You found out, and you've sent me something, and good on you. And I'll listen to it, and that's great. But again, that's got to be part of your job, really, because
absolutely.
In an ideal, great world, we could have lots of open auditions, and we could, get people who aren't signed up to agents. But there is also that thing of I can't take massive risks on a AAA game of auditioning everyone, which would take so long and cost an absolute fortune. So it's a really difficult balance that maybe sometimes what people should be doing is aiming for the smaller developers, and the guys straight out of uni who have little games, and building it up from there. That because there's lots out there. It's that balance. It's that balance of.
It's good advice.
Yeah, I think as well, because obviously at the moment now with obviously the likes of social media and people being able to put together a little studio at home. There's a lot of people that really are trying to break into the voice acting scene, get into games and stuff. So do you get inundated with
Right. Well, do you know what I love about it, Michael? And I do think it's changing. Is that it used to be, no question, unless you went to one of the drama schools, you went to one of the formed on the stage, you were classically trained, then you'd get an agent, and with that you'd get your voice agent, and you would, then that's what you do. Now it's totally changing. It's guys who are D&D players, Dungeon.
Yeah.
It's guys who just did loads of streaming, Twitch stuff, and they're busy working voice actors. I think that's brilliant. That's how it should be, because in America it's like that, and we're slowly catching up.
Mm-hmm.
It isn't now, it isn't a closed off world as it used to be.
No.
There is ways of getting in. I think agents are much more open to it now as well. Agents aren't sitting going, yes, okay, but where can I see you in the West End? Because if I can come and watch you in the West End, then I'll decide if I'm going to sign you. That's kind of gone now. Now it's people going, all right, let me hear. As you say, I've made up all these tapes, or I've got myself a really banging reel, and things like that. So I think things are changing. And I do feel that the really good people do rise to the top. And that's just from an outside now looking in. I think the best people do eventually get the best agents and eventually get the best jobs. I do think that.
There's no what's the word I'm looking for? It's no coincidence that you see the people that put a lot of effort in. Like if they've got a goal, they want to work in games, and they put the effort in to produce scenes, or they redo a scene with their voice instead and do performance, and they effectively showcase what they can do. It's not a coincidence that a lot of those people then do get to work in games. They do get with the big agents because they're consistently showing up online. Yeah. They're consistently saying, this is what I can do. I'm consistently working on the craft. And like you said, it could be someone who's proficient in a type of game. They just love it so much. That if
you've got the knowledge of games, there's another top tip. Play games.
Yeah, I said that to Jen a while ago. She bought a PlayStation.
Well, listen,
a few years ago, because I wasn't a gamer, I was like, I fucking need this. I want to work in games. So.
But Jen, I think it is important, and I think it's important. Like even in sessions, I can tell when we come to like walla stuff, noises and barks and shit. You can tell if someone's played games or not. If someone doesn't get it when you say, "Give me 10 death shouts," and they're like, aya, and you're like, wait a minute, and immediately gamers are just like, and
all the noises.
I completely agree with you, because even though I'd watched loads and loads of like walkthroughs and stuff to try and build that knowledge, it's just not the same.
But even that though, Jen, that's good. That's still pretty good, because some people,
it's certainly a good start.
Yeah, well, you told me you have a child, and if you've got children like I do as well. You ain't got time to be sitting playing games. Exactly.
They have taken over me. Hogwarts Legacy, one of them's finished it, and I'm still there. Can't fight, can't fucking turn the thing around. They're absolutely smashing it. It makes a huge difference, though, because just hearing the voices in situ, I think it does make a difference. It's not. I don't know if it's essential. Obviously, I'm not as but it's.
Do you know what I think it helps? It helps things like when you're in a session. The writers of the games, they're the ones that could go on to be future studio heads and future, and a lot of them,
true.
like I've had ones, so there's stuff that I don't really cast, they've come to me and said, this is who we want. And it's someone who they were in a game I played when I was 10 years ago. And you go to them and they're like, yeah, brilliant. And the reason is because the writer, who's now the studio head, wants that person. I've had that just recently with people. Yeah, just recently. And it was the two people that they wanted were, one was a Dungeons and Dragons kind of master, and one was a lady who had been in a game that they loved, who were both early, and they got them both, and they couldn't believe it. And they were a small indie game, like
that's very cool.
4 hours of recording per actor. But actors love it, so they're like,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I would like to say I have never played Dungeons and Dragons, and I want to. Like that is one of my missions.
I've not either. I've not either.
Have you not?
No, but I now believe it's definitely a way of getting good at voices.
Yeah. I just think I'd really enjoy it. I did a session at One Voice with Natalie Winters, and she did the session. I was like, man, I'm really going to have to, I just really want to do it. Yeah. So anyway, I'm putting it out there into the world.
I hear it all the time. As someone who does love the gaming community, like I've just never engaged with this Dungeons and Dragons. So what's the... So
it's a role-playing game. It's a role-playing game. You have dice, you have a dungeon master, you roll, and then you take on all these different roles, and
especially because I love improv as well. So I'm like, yes, it sounds right up my street.
It's not at all.
Let's
what I
go.
thought it was then.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I've recently I worked with a guy. He's called Michael Mercer, and he's Critical Role, who is the biggest Dungeons and Dragons YouTube channel that there is in the world, sort of thing. Wow. And he's like this dungeon master guy, nicest man you'll ever meet, nicest man. Just one of these guys. Just great, and he, his career is made off being this Dungeons and Dragons.
That's so cool.
Well, I think that ties well with what you said before about like some of these people now, rather than having to have like the whole, they've been to the acting schools, the drama schools, etc. It's the landscape is changing, and obviously social media and having a social media presence, not so much how many followers you've got, but it's more about the content you put out. If people are really engaging with it, that is something people are recognising. So if someone was trying to audition for something that closely aligns with that, these people have a lot of experience because they eat, breathe and sleep it.
I've definitely clocked people on social media, definitely.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
I definitely have. In fact, just recently, clock someone on social media, listen to their stuff, give them a part. Definitely. Because... it's a way of hearing a new voice, and
encouraging to hear.
And it might well be that they've auditioned for stuff for me before, but just not quite been in that top 10 or been in that top 10 and not being picked, by the client, So that's that definitely happens.
That's a good incentive to kind of keep pushing when you can't be asked to post on social media. Keep going, kids.
Because it's really hard.
Yeah,
social media is really tough to keep going with, and you said, like, you see some people and you're like, God, they're good at it. They are good.
But also as well, it's a toxic playground, because you do also have those people who will be jealous of your efforts. Yeah. And they through seeing your efforts, they self-reflect and go, I'm angry, I'm not doing that for myself, so I'm just going to throw some hate on you instead. And then that hate can have a negative effect on the person and maybe slow down their enthusiasm and stuff. So
we don't employ them, Michael. Yeah. We're not employing them. They're out on the rear. Yeah, exactly.
Well, it's a sad state of affairs. They exist, and they know who they are, and they ask more questions than it answers when people do stuff like that.
I mean, listen, we're in an industry where you're going to get a bit of that. You're putting yourself out there, and it's going to be like that. You have to be thick-skinned.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's tough. It's a tough business.
But I think what you said there is really encouraging, for the idea that for people to keep showing up and just keep doing that thing, because you never know who's looking. You never know who's looking. But
you don't, and it definitely happens, and it's 100%. I've cast someone quite recently, and it was purely off something I saw.
Excellent. I feel excited. Michael and I opt to create content. Let's go.
Just make a little video. All right, folks, Michael here. Just a quick sidestep from the episode. So, Jen can't be with me to record this, but we have decided to start doing them after the main episode, and then we just add them in afterwards. Like I said, she can't be with me, but it's time for this week's Voiceover of the Week. Okay, so this week we've picked none other than the incredibly talented Rhiannon Mauschel. And Rhiannon, if you don't know, she's just won Female Voiceover Artist of the Year at One Voice 2025, and I'm honestly not surprised. When I heard this piece of work, I thought it was a really great performance. It was just really enjoyable. Now, the job that we're talking about is a commercial she's done for a game called Void Crew, and Rhiannon uploaded a few different clips, and I've picked one of them and I've sort of sliced it together to about 30 seconds, so there's a bit of constant voiceover. To add a bit of context, so the reason why I love this so much was because it's got like a really a fun dark humour to it. It's like it's sarcastic, like I said, it's got a dark humour. Now, if you watch this, if you go on her profile on Instagram, or if you watch the episode on YouTube, you'll watch the visuals that go with it. And it does really work well, because there's obviously a comical element to this game, but just the audio on its own will tell you everything you need to know. And this is what it sounds like.
Welcome aboard, X-Type. As an immortal servant of Medum, your primary function is to die productively. You are part of an elite crew, genetically enhanced for teamwork, courage, and accidental friendly fire. But no need to worry, Medum will grow you a new body, over and over again. Your missions are dangerous. You will burn. You will suffocate. You will be left behind. You may ask, was it my fault? The answer is yes.
So there we go. Should also point out as well that obviously you hear that in an American accent, but Rhiannon's native accent is Australian. So again, it's just she's done a great performance there. So well done, Rhiannon. You're our voiceover of the week with that great performance, and on with the show. But I tell you, with that in mind, then let's flip it and let's look at the things that people should be aware of that you think that mistakes some people make that they
tell
know
us the
they're
juicy
doing,
stuff
that can probably hurt their chances, and
Okay.
What they can do to improve.
Number one, read the brief, please. Read the brief. It is mad. Like, it is bonkers how many people don't read the brief. And that's not just the actors, that's then the agent's fault as well a lot of the time. And it's certain agencies do it, and it's the same ones, which their clients, they don't label their files. If you don't label your file properly, I don't know who you are. Yeah. So I might listen to Michael's film and go, that guy's really good. What's his name? It's just his character, Ogre One. I'm like, wow, who is he? What agency with? I don't know. So labeling your files properly is really good. So, and you get either slate or don't slate. I prefer no slate in mine, so I'll ask for that. Some Americans love a slate.
Yeah, it seems to be that's the split, isn't it? Americans seems to like it more.
Love it. They love it.
Love it. Like it as much.
Well, that's not a good film.
Yeah. Yeah, they do. It's funny.
I don't like doing the slate. I have to say,
I don't like it. It lasts so long, and it kind of knocks me out of the zone. If I've got the 150 whatever to listen to, and suddenly I'm here.
It's just like a roll call, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, it's Jim Smith from this agency.
Because you can't put any colour to it, can you? You're like, hey, it's me, Michael.
And I'm always like, how do I make my voice in this one moment?
Listen, people do though. People go, hi there, how you doing? Great to chat.
Get on with it.
Yeah. So don't follow the rules. Whatever they've asked, and the way that we've asked you to label your files, that's also important. So I like the character name to be first, then your name, then agency, whatever. But the character name first, because then when I put them in folders, they're all in alphabetical order. And that then saves me a few more minutes when I'm not having to find, oh, wait there, what's that? Oh, God, it's Ogre One again. What's he doing? Drag him across the Ogre One file. Ogre. Yeah. Michael, you're definitely getting that part. But
typecast.
Yeah.
So listen, I'll take anything, whatever's going.
So I do think that's the thing, is follow the rules. Also, I usually like say there's 10 lines. If you're going to give me 2 takes, I want those 10 lines one take, and I want those 10 lines as a second take, all on the same file as well. Yeah. Is that I do it? That for me, again, this is about following the rules. This is what I like. I don't like as much when people do 2 takes of the same line, then move on 2 takes of the same line. So I just feel I can't get into it as much. I can't get the flow. So not that has stopped people getting parts in the past, because it hasn't. People still,
And would you say ABC, so people know, would you tell them that beforehand?
We usually try in the brief, that it says that. And then sometimes we have to go back and redo it because it's maybe not, big enough. So that's always one thing. Trying to think of other things. Yeah, listen back to your records. Again, you would be surprised.
Donald looks wild-eyed if anyone is not watching this in video form.
Sometimes I'll listen, I'll go, what have you done? And a lot of the time it's singers, who have got their presets on for their singing, with some weird kind of, so it sounds like Cher, and the "You Believe in Love," and they're doing the, they ain't getting Ogre One with a Cher thing through their voice, So make sure your settings and everything are fine. Have a listen.
That's mad. Who would not do that?
Every time, Jen. Every time.
I get the file thing. I think sometimes it can be easy to, even though you think you've checked it and you've but listening, I don't know.
Just listen.
God.
Just listen.
I'll get a chance to audition for you once and you'll be like, she's fucking done it. She's fucking Jen. What's she doing?
Jen has got a weird echo. She sounds like she's in a cathedral. What is going on?
Damn it!
Yeah.
Never working with her. She's out the window.
But you'd be surprised. It happens a lot. So have a listen back to your file. Make sure that's all working. do as well, as much as you can, audition for the parts that you really think you're right for.
Just about to say that. Do people
because
audition for things you're clearly not right for this part?
And I get it. I totally get it. You get sent a brief, it's got 15 parts on it, there's 15 parts, and you're like, oh, I'll just go for all 15. I might just go for all 15. And then you're sitting there, and I'm not joking, and people are going for something that, it's a male voice, or it's someone with a female voice, and it's somewhere with an accent that's just not right, or you're playing completely the wrong ethnicity, and you can hear it, and I'm like, wait a minute, I don't think you're right for this. And I'll Google, and then I'll see you're not right. So not just have I heard your audition, I've seen your face now, so I've remembered you. Yeah. So and that happens a lot as well. So only really try and go for ones for parts that you think that's me. Yeah, you can go slightly outside the box because that's how you get exciting parts, But just be careful. That goes back to reading the brief, you know, if it says, because that'll happen. And that, again, kind of should be on the agents as well a little bit, I think, just to guide, especially if it's younger actors who are just, super keen or something, or someone's just been signed by them, and they just, have a little look at that. So that's quite important.
Do you ever find that, how often does it happen that...
More than you would think.
One thing we talked about in the past was that I think sometimes people can get so invested in this audition of this character, they've they can almost visualize it, that they just go completely off what the brief is asking of them and just provide something random.
I mean, listen, you'll get varying degrees of things that I never know if I'm right, so I'm going off the brief as well. So remember, as a casting director, I'm going off the brief, and I've had a chat with the writers, but a lot of the time you then realise what the writers have said, that's a bit odd because 120 people have gone down this other road. So let's go with the actors here. I think, give them their due. But you do get some that are wildly bizarre. But trying something different, I don't mind people trying something different as well.
So talking of trying something different then, I've asked a few people this. If we're doing a straight take, we've read the brief, we're doing what we think you want.
Yeah.
And then we go for a wild card.
Yeah.
Would you lead with the wild card? Would you do the wild card second?
Do you know what, Jen? That is a great question. Because, and I'm always hesitant to even say this, but sometimes when people do go a wee bit off-piste and try something a wee bit different, it can work.
Yeah.
Because I'm only human as well, and if I've listened to 100 things and someone starts with something just a wee bit, you're like, what? Huh?
Yeah.
What? Obviously, if everyone did it, it wouldn't work. So,
and it'd be batshit, wouldn't it? You'd be like, what am I listening to?
Don't do it on every time. But every so often, as long as it's in the world of your character, but so be careful. That's what I would say about that. I do not advise that. I'm not going to say do it. I'm not going to say that. But I am going to say I have known a couple of people to be cast by doing something a bit different. But you've got to be super clever to do that.
Well, I remember, because you do hear that sometimes. You hear some of these stories where somebody did something completely out of the ordinary and a bit wild, and it got the attention, and sometimes got the part. And I remember when I used to go to my acting school, we were told a story that there was a lad who did a self-tape and for this character, and it was for a Tim Burton film, and he did something completely random. He had quite a bit of a wacky personality, so he just sort of fed that personality into this character, and he did something completely random, but so much so it got him an invitation to Tim Burton's house to audition. Now, he didn't get the part. He was in the final 2 or 3, but he said his audition was so... Because Tim Burton's got quite a wild imagination as well. And so he said it really filtered... He just loved it. Yeah, it wasn't right for the part in the end, but he loved it, and he stood out a mile. So you hear sometimes stories where people take that chance, but I think it's also... I think
it's a risk.
It is a risk, and it's sometimes just maybe to make an educated guess as to whether
I think you're right.
Audition is this the one to take that risk on?
Like, I would never say do it. Do you know, I would say...
But your eyes are saying do it, but your mouth is saying don't.
Exactly. You'd have to be... So, for example, a guy, we were auditioning part, I think it was for like a walrus, in this animation thing. And it was it was American actors, LA actors, and they had to have a kind of... And it said, we need you to be comedic, comedic. So I was listening to all these auditions. Then this guy had this audition where it started off and he was like, hey, hey, hey. And I'm like, oh my God, what's going on here? Couldn't hear. I'm just coming. And he went, hey man. And it was like he'd fallen down the stairs and he appeared and he started speaking. And I was like, oh my gosh. And he got the part.
Brilliant.
And he got the part.
That's clever.
But that's kind of like colouring outside the lines, isn't it? Like, there's something where it's like that's still in the world of it, if that's the character. And
that's right. That's right. It would have to still be in the world. And, and that was right. If everyone had done it, it wouldn't have been, That's
cool.
Yeah,
I might try and find that, actually, and see
what there is that thing in the back of your mind where, like obviously, we always say, don't add music to your auditions. You know what I mean? Because you're adding a different colour to it that might not align at all with what the client wants. But again, it comes back to that thing, doesn't it? It's like might have this idea, this could be great, but you have to remember it might be great in your head, but it's got to translate, and that's where the risk.
I think that's the thing. No effects. Don't add effects. Don't try, to add stuff to make it bigger or anything like that. It needs to just be as is. Okay, and then, right, so then recording, where you're going to record. So we're lucky. We've all got nice little spaces we're recording out of, so our auditions are going to sound nice. Make it sound as best as you possibly can. Not everyone has a home booth, yeah? Now, I don't know as well why some of the agencies maybe don't say to their actors, just invest in a good mic. They aren't super expensive. You can get a reasonably good mic for, I don't know, $150, can't you? Like something like that. Yeah. $200. I think invest in a nice USB mic. Not a USB mic. Don't invest in a USB mic. Don't invest. Scrap that. Cut this whole thing. No.
All right. Thanks for coming, folks.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone. Bye. So yeah. No. I would say ideally don't get a USB mic. Ideally get yourself a nice condenser mic if you can, because again, or it's people recording their phones and stuff as well. Now, it's only human that my ears are going to be attracted to beautiful sound. So if 10 people are recording on their phones and then someone comes in with their lovely Neumann and gives me a hello, I'm going to go, hi, and they go, please pick me. And I'll be like, yeah, you're picked. Do you know, I think that's the other thing, where you record, how you record is important as well. And if you can afford to get yourself a wee condenser in a quiet corner in a cupboard or something, it's probably worth doing.
Yeah,
I think as well. I think it comes back to that idea of, I don't know. Some people might not make that investment, but they're really talented and they could be hurting their own chances.
Michael, massively. It's really tricky. When I run voiceover courses, I kind of talk about, and I don't want people to go and buy stuff. So the least amount as possible as you need. But, that's going to be your weapon of choice, is a microphone that you're going to be speaking into and making your money. 1 hour of a video game, 1 hour you get 1 hour plus a bit of usage on that. You're buying an even better Neumann. Do you know? Yeah. And that you can have it for years. Of a good mic. So it's tricky.
Yeah. Do you think as well it's important that if somebody gets a professional demo reel done, that what they can do at their home studio is up to a certain standard that the demo provides? Like if you obviously, the studio demo's always going to sound polished, but then if they then do record on a phone, for example, is that another thing that's just going against them?
I think so, because if I'm auditioning, I'm not listening to your demo. If we're doing an audition, I'm only listening to what the audition you've sent me. We can all sound pretty damn amazing on a demo. So demos are great for certain things. Demos are what I would go to when I'm looking to cast other parts and I want to see if you've got a bit of range.
Would you hire someone directly from a demo for smaller parts, or possibly?
Yeah, from smaller parts, possibly. Yeah, I would. I could chat to agents. I would. Yeah. I might even ask someone. Look, recently asked someone. Look, I think you're going to be good. Mm-hmm. Give me this. Record this in this style, and let's hear what you got. And then they send me, and I was like, that's fine. Yeah. And that wasn't to send to the client. That was just for me to be able to think, are they going to be able to come into the studio and do what I want them to do? Yes. Yeah. So I think demos are great for that, but when we're casting big roles, I wouldn't cast stuff a demo. Some clients might be what they want. They might only be able to afford to do that, but I would never advise it.
Okay.
Never advise it.
That's a really interesting takeaway, that, because I have come across people who have sank £500-600 into a demo, and they don't have much of a home studio. And the idea was that the demo is all, singing and dancing, and that can get them to work. And I've always had the impression that, well, no, because then if you are asked to do an audition, you don't have the resources to do it.
No.
Like, your demo is your opportunity to try and get your foot in the door,
yeah.
to try and get noticed what you are capable of as per the demo. But then now you've got to replicate that in a real-life situation. If you're not prepared or set up to do that, or if you're just using your phone, then it's like you're taking a step forward, you got noticed, and then now they want work from you, you're taking a step backwards.
Yeah.
And speaking of microphones, like Rode, which one is it they do? The NT1A.
NT1A, 100
odd quid, and you can sometimes get the bundle with the Focusrite.
Yeah.
For about 200 quid. It's
Listen, I mean,
starting.
I always, whenever I'm teaching courses, I would recommend Rode NT1A. Some people, engineers, might be a bit, what's he saying? But I just think for a financial outlay, it's not loads. And your audition's then going to sound as good as everyone else's.
Yeah.
Like, that's what you got to remember. If you're against 200 other people, it's like if you were to do your filmed self-tape, everyone else is filming in a lovely background, and you've got, your granny's camcorder from 1981 with the date and time on it, and with no sound, and it's just like,
lines going up.
Yeah, exactly. It's silly to do that. It's silly to do that.
You have to invest in. I mean, I know a demo was an investment, but I think it's part of a wider investment that I think you do need to have, even if it's just a basic setup, but just an entry-level setup that's not using your phone, it's not a USB microphone, is enough just to elevate the sound that little bit more. And it's so important. And I have come across people who haven't made that leap because they think the demo is enough, and it's just not, is it? It's...
I don't think it is, just the additions, and that seems so harsh because obviously demos are super expensive, and they are super important because they can also get you an agent, and that's sometimes the state. So that's why, you have to put probably a little bit of money in to get anything out. You can't just go, I've got a fantastic voice and I can do all the characters, even Ogre 1, and then someone's just going to go, yes, please, I will give you work. You're probably going to need the demo to get the agent. Then once you've got the agent, you need the good mic to get your auditions, nailing your auditions, because then your agent's not going to want to send you loads of auditions if they think you're recording on the phone, so it's difficult. It is. That's all difficult, but you don't need to spend crazy money. That's the thing.
No.
Definitely don't.
So changing the subject slightly then. So we've talked a bit about stuff that people shouldn't do. Is there anything then when you're listening to these 200 auditions that you think, that was amazing? I mean, I know we talked about how difficult it is to describe that, but
Jen,
what do you like to hear?
Can I tell you, lots of people are amazing.
Yeah.
And that's the case. Lots of people are absolutely fan-bloomin-tastic, and sometimes you think, God, I mean, I could cast 40 or 50 people here, and that's not a joke.
Yeah.
I could cast every so often. You'll get one or two, and you just go, whoa, there's just something special about your voice for that part. There's just something that's like, if they don't pick you, a lot of the time, I'll make my choices. I won't tell the client because I don't want to,
okay.
And they won't pick it. They won't pick my choices, so, in fact, a lot of the time I'll maybe go, right, they'd be my top two in each of those categories, and the client goes with someone totally
and would
different.
you not say? You wouldn't say.
Sometimes if they ask me. Sometimes if they ask me. And no, I just kind of think. I also go, all 10 of them, I think would do a good job.
Yeah, you believe in them. Yeah.
And one or two are usually wild cards. Who I think they're a bit different. They might be
like the Walrus guy.
Yeah, exactly. There's just something a bit different there. So let's have a listen. So yes, it is. Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes you don't know what it is that someone has. Yeah.
I was frightened you're going to say that. But
a lot of the time as well, it's just their acting skills are fantastic. I think that's the other thing. This is acting. Some of these big games, they're so story driven and deep and or funny. And you've got 10 lines you've been given to get that across. Yeah. So they usually, I like my clients to really make sure on each line, what do they want from each line? Yeah,
so in terms of that brief then, sorry, I'm going back to it a little bit, but are you When you're sending that brief out, are you doing that? So you have your 10 lines.
Yeah.
Is that from the client, or have you chosen
That's from the
those?
client. Sometimes they won't send me enough, and I'll add in some more. But usually they'll give me the lines, and I'll say, but I also want you to tell me, how do you want those lines delivered?
So you give a guide around emotion.
Yeah.
And then have you got like the character blurb at the top? Do you have a picture?
Yes.
Like, do you push for that stuff?
Picture. That's only because, from an actor's point of view, I like to have a picture.
Yeah.
I'm
very visual.
Just to see it, because then you can see it, and also that can change the way you are.
Yeah, like how are they holding their mouth in that picture?
Exactly.
Totally.
Are they the big, strong? Are they leading with the chest? Because voice acting is massively physical.
Yeah.
The best voice actors, they're moving about all the time, and they're doing, and I'm just hearing my engineer Ed going, "Don't move your face. Stay close to the mic."
That's normally my direction. Like, just try and be a bit stiller.
Move everything else as well. But a lot of the time, the creature stuff, monster stuff, cartoon stuff, you have to be physical as well. Otherwise it would just be flat.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
I think one of the things. I mean, I would like to try and get a reel done at some point. I am very much in this zone now, where I'm trying to create a bit of content for the socials and have something of a portfolio that, if I wanted to be noticed, I've got some stuff there that people can look through and go, "Oh, this is what it's about." One of my problems I've always had, and I have talked about this in the past, but obviously with yourself, I'll mention it to you, see what you think. One of the problems I've always had is that I'm not very good at doing voices, like character voices, for example. I love doing the more lower tone, more dramatic. I love all that sort of stuff. But I'm concerned that that's not enough to be able to try and get cast in a game. And is like, whether it be accents or try and work on character, like, because
I think it's both, Michael. I think it's both. I think you get multi-voice actors who are worth their weight in gold. People that I go, I can get those 10 people in, and they'll cover 50 parts for me.
Yeah.
Or you get people and they're cast because they've got a brilliant voice, and it might be for one. Had it recently where there was a big AAA game coming out soonish, where a guy was cast and he was in the leads, and his voice was absolutely perfect. But weirdly, the producers cut corners a wee bit, had given him another 2 parts. So they tried to play these 2 parts, but they just sounded the same as the other one.
Yeah.
And so I, made a call with the writer. I was like, I don't think this is going to work.
Yeah.
I think we should call this. I think he is amazing at that. And this is because he was absolutely brilliant. He's the main thing. He's brilliant.
Yeah.
I said, but there's no point us doing those other 2 things, and he's great. And I would employ him again in a second.
I was going to say then, so it doesn't have any ramifications. No. I suppose, though, you would know that he's good at that thing.
Yeah, because he was absolutely perfect at that thing. So it is tricky. And Michael, you'd be surprised. You probably do have other things and other ways, and a lot of the time it's just about you varying your tone, varying your tone and everything. And I think it's people who can play age is a really good weapon as well.
Most of the stuff that I tend to do is I go for, it's more the realism type of thing. So it's like a relatable thing. So it can be just a normal person talking rather than like an overly performed dialogue, if that kind of makes sense. Try and make it as real and like relatable as possible. So that can just be in my normal tone, or if I drop it a little bit into the more dramatic tone. But when it comes to doing a reel, then when you listen to a reel, do you need to see? Is it important to see a range, or are you okay with a reel where somebody hones in on something they're good at and does multiple spots with variations of that to give different scenarios rather than completely different tones?
It's really difficult. I think what you don't want is a reel where someone's not doing stuff well.
Yeah, and it all sounds the same.
Or it all sounds the same. But if there's 1 or 2 things that you're great at, great. I mean, it depends what I'm casting for.
Yeah.
Because if I'm looking for someone that's just this one deep, lovely tone, then that's what I'm listening for. But if I'm like, right, I need them in for that part, but there's also these 6 NPC roles, and I need them to be able to cover most of the north of England, then that's the kind of thing, I feel ideally people want to have some accents in their arsenal.
Yeah. I agree.
I just think it really, for gaming, I think it helps massively.
Yeah.
So if you can come in, do your role, have half an hour left where you cover another 4 roles. I mean, we've had it recently in a game where I've cast someone for one thing, and there's like going to be 20 minutes left, and my voice producers said to me, "Don't we need to give them another part?" So I give them a little role that's like 5 lines, but that little role is reprised 3 blocks later, 130 lines, so they're back in, and they've got some more, so ideally you want to be able to have
That's the thing, isn't it, as well? It's knowing beforehand. It's like, do you need me to do this accent for 5 lines, or is there 150 lines?
I know.
That might be different.
Yeah. I know, Jen, I always do as well say, I only want you to do an accent that you're comfortable with.
Yeah.
And also, I won't be scared to go, let's not do it. A lot of the times people go, yeah, I'm just gonna try my Scottish. Yeah, and you're going, are you okay? Yeah. Scottish, and you're like, okay, come on, let's do it. So you can also say to people, look, that's not going to quite work. Let's see what else we've got, and I think you have to, because otherwise it can, a bad accent or a bad thing can kind of jolt you out of a game or an experience.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I had it wasn't for a game, but about 18 months ago, about 2 years ago, I went to London to do a recording for an advert, and everything was, I got booked to my audition. It was straightforward enough. I was looking forward to doing it. And then when I got there, 16 people on the Zoom. And when I got there, she went, I'm thinking about changing it to like a pirate captain. I was like, sorry, what? Immediately I was just like, okay. Yeah. And now I've got all these Zoom people looking at me, and it was just the worst. It made no sense either.
And that's not fair.
Just having fun with it, yeah.
That's not fair, but listen, from my VO hat on, I had it the other day where I was sitting expecting to do something in Scottish, a big corporate thing with loads of technical stuff. And they were like, actually, we just want natural English accent for this. Right, okay. And, and that's fine, you got it, but you need to kind of prep, I think.
Yeah, did you have that wave of panic before you were like, no, I can do this? But it's just that feeling of like, okay.
And then you just doubt yourself, so all you're thinking about is your bad accent.
Yeah, and you're not acting anymore.
Yeah, rather than what
that note was wrong.
Oh my gosh, I know.
You go in there with confidence, like, I'm going to smash it. Then they ask you to do something, you can't just like, well, that was terrible.
You come out like a shell of yourself,
Oh, wow. Well, listen, I could quite happily sit here and carry on talking for hours. I know Jen's got to go in 5 minutes, so
yeah.
I guess I'll have a call time. Honestly, Donald, thank you so much.
Oh, listen, that was great fun.
This is so interesting.
You basically let me come on and vent. I loved it.
Yeah. Well, you please come on again and vent. We'd love to hear more from you.
But I do say as well, like to anyone listening as well, do send stuff. Send your reels and send your.
You're going to be absolutely swamped.
But send kind of links of of what you're doing, because not just to me. My email is Michael at no, but it's the kind of thing you should do, because otherwise it's that whole thing of you. Otherwise, how do you get found? How do you get heard?
Yeah.
How do you
know you exist?
Yeah, exactly. And agents, I know agents don't get back to you, but they do. They do eventually. A lot of time they save stuff up, and then they listen to those. So again, don't stress about that either, because it's difficult. They've got a hard job because they've got hundreds of people wanting to be on their book. So it's tough. It's tough. But guys, that was a lovely chat.
What an amazing note to
finish
on.
Honestly, well, it's just been great. It's been so informative, and I know that people listening to this season for these sort of things are going to get a lot from it. So yes, thanks for sharing your information.
Oh, guys, you did a brilliant job. That's a great thing you did. Great.
I appreciate that. Yeah, we love it. It's a bit of
and
labour of love.
Yeah. We'll see everyone next week.
That'll be it for this week, folks. Thanks very much for listening. Thanks again, Donald, for your time and your insights. Very much appreciated. And we'll see you on the next episode. Cheers,
thanks, everyone.
folks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.